August the 9th, 2023. Guys, we've watched this last year many banks go down. It started over on the West Coast with one of the first federal banks, and then a couple of other ones went after that. They were all taken in by bigger banks. I think J.P. Morgan is one of the big ones that are taking in the scraps of what's left over. Now, those first banks were all they all failed under the California Federal Reserve or banking reserve there. It was limited to that sector. And there's been a lot going on in California. You saw the lab that was discovered now is being traced back to grants by your governor. But anyway, Moody's has cut the rating of 10 banks by one notch and placed 6 banking giants, including the Bank of New York, Mellon, U.S. Bancorp, State Street, and Truist Financial on review for potential downgrades. Now, they reported on the downgrade listing the 10 mid-sized banks that were downgrading, and what we're going to see here, the larger banks will take in the banks in this paragraph, and so that they can consolidate and make it a one-world money system. Again, it will be digitally controlled. A lot of people are saying move into silver and gold, because the Bible tells us just the opposite, and common sense corresponds with the Bible verse that says they will throw their silver and gold into the streets because it's useless, and it was the stumbling block of their iniquity. That's not verbatim, but in other words, if you can't eat it, you're not going to make it. In other words, you can walk up with a handful of gold to someone that's got a loaf of bread for their family for that supper that night, and they're going to laugh at you. That's what the Bible's talking about. Now, they didn't mention cash because there was no paper money at that time. You either had gold or silver or something else of value, gems or something, or there was no barter. But you also got to think about this, and there's articles that are talking about it, and some of the articles kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth. It depends on who you're listening to when they're talking about the value of silver and gold in the end times, how it is it's an anti-inflationary investment. In other words, silver may not make you a lot of money, but with the inflation going up on every family in the U.S. and around the world, on the cost of gas to get to work, and then the cost of groceries and the cost of utilities, cost of insurance, especially if you're in a hurricane-prone area. Guys, in Florida, a lot of people are going to lose their homes because the hurricanes have raised the insurance rates so high that people can't afford the note and the insurance on the homes. A lot of these are large and very expensive homes. Some are not. What's going to happen there in Florida because of that finance situation with the insurance companies is the banks are going to take the homes. Look in your contract very carefully. And if you don't maintain insurance, then more than likely they can take your assets, including the home. The agency downgraded the credit ratings of these 10 size banks by one notch. These more than likely will be the next in line to fall. They were the M&T Bank, Webster Bank, Pinnacle Financial Partners, the BOK Financial Corp, Associated Bank Corp, ASB, Old National Bank Corp, Amarillo National Bank, Commerce Bank Shares and Prosperity Bank, and Fulton Financial Corp. It also assigned a negative outlook to 6 top-tier lenders: the Bank of New York Mellon, U.S. Bancorp, State Street, Truist, Northern Trust, Cullen/Frost Bankers. So you don't see J.P. Morgan in there. And you ever heard the game's rigged? Well, this game is being rigged. A lot of these banks would not be in trouble if we didn't have the inflation going on and their inability to make loans, because that's where they make their profit off of interest. It says these decisions reflect a challenging backdrop on the banking industry and amid intense competition for attracting deposits in the aftermath of this year's banking crisis. Moody's cited increased funding costs, profitability pressures, and slowing loan growth as a common theme in banks' second quarter earnings. Now you think about Powell. raising interest rates continuously. Just got another half-point raise. Why? They say to fight inflation. But usually inflation is caused, or inflation leads to your inability to buy things, right? So if you raise the rates, inflation goes up. It doesn't go down. It doesn't make sense. Why are the banks collapsing if the economy's so good? The interest rates are putting the loans and people's ability to buy even a small or medium home out of their range. New cars and trucks. So everyone's suffering. The housing industry, real estate industry, automobile manufacturers, the automobile salespeople, the shops that work on them. So it's a way, a disguise to collapse the world's economy, to move it into the new one world digital eyeball scan system. It says U.S. banks' second quarter earnings showed material increases in funding costs as well as profitability pressures related to the significant and rapid tightening in monetary policy. They said it, an inverted yield curve, which will continue to lower profitability and implies a weaker ability to generate capital internally. If they can't loan you money and they can't make money off that loan, they will eventually bail in and take your money with them. Now, this comes just a few days ago. Remember that Fitch downgraded the U.S. in a huge negative signal to the Biden economy. Went from AAA plus to AAA, and they threw a fit in D.C., guys. That not that the economy was bad, but that Moody's had the gall to say that, to admit the truth. But they will hide everything they can. Remember, the stock market is not an indicator of the U.S. economy by any means. If you could really look at the numbers as far as new industries being built, infrastructure being built, you would see almost none. And then look at what's happening with the layoffs everywhere. You can't drill, you can't run your pipelines. The car manufacturers can't sell cars now, so the economy is in a very distressed situation. Now, this is an article, guys, from someone that deals in silver and gold and cryptocurrency and things like that. And he asked the question, where do you see silver in the future? And the question kind of came up with, what will be the value of silver if the U.S. dollar collapses? And it applies to gold, too. This is mostly about silver, but when you see every other YouTube video pushing gold and silver, guys, beware. Beware. Cavit emptor, as the real estate manuals say, buyer beware. Because first, there's two things that are happening. One is some people actually get the physical gold and silver, and some people just get paper saying they have it in a vault somewhere, right? Well, that is beyond ignorant to me. Sorry to say that, but that's what it is. If you can't hold it in your hand, you don't own it. But how long are you going to keep it in your hand is important. A lot of people say, well, if the dollar collapses, you can at least trade or barter with silver and gold. That's not going to work. It doesn't matter. It's in this article. We'll see. He mentions that it kind of contradicts itself, but bartering will be the one thing if the dollar collapses that you can do. But again, it's going to come to this. Are you going to resell it to the silver brokers or to the person that talked you into buying it so they could make a commission off of it? And the ones behind the pulpits that do that, that's where judgment's going to start, the way you do his people. But the article continues. It said, first of all, the dollar will never collapse. Well, we see that's a mistake anyway. This article is just over a year old, but it fits very well to where the mentality is in the U.S., except for the one thing. In the last year, people are more concerned about the dollar itself. However, he says, if it did, the world would be in far worse shape than the silver market could fix. Silver is a known commodity whose value tends to counter the dollar's value. Except if you go back and say, go to one of your sites like CNBC or whatever, and you can click on the different things, gold, silver, oil, wheat, whatever it is. Click on silver, and do a 5-year chart, you can see that in the last year, or maybe 2 years, silver's gone from $27 an ounce to about $22 today. Now, some people just like us, you have a couple silver dollars. That's not really what I'm talking about here. But for the people that are being led down this road of that gold and silver will always be valuable, and you're listening to a preacher that tells you that is not reading from the Bible about how you will cast it into the streets, then, guys, they are not shepherds. They're not pastors. They're profiteers. It says, historically, if the dollar falls in value, silver will rise in the marketplace. That's not happening now. However, if the dollar completely collapses, now they admit it, they said it will never happen, but if it does, the American currency will be worthless. This outcome will leave silver null and void. If no person or company buys silver, then the value of the metal will decrease as well. And at the end of the article, they mentioned that if everything collapses, you may be able to barter with it, possibly. May even be able to trade silver for larger things like a vehicle or something like that. But guys, most people are not in the silver and gold market. A lot of them are, unfortunately. But no car dealer is going to let you come onto a lot, used or new, and trade gold or silver for a vehicle. Their job is to take food home to their family at the end of that week or the end of that month, whenever they get paid. And you can't eat silver and gold. So you're looking at the cash drops out. They're admitting it here. I'm going to read it again. Historically, if the dollar falls in value, silver will rise in the marketplace. Not happening. However, if the dollar completely collapses, the American currency will be worthless. This outcome will leave silver null and void. Also gold. If no person or company buys silver, then the value of the metal will decrease as well. Now, a lot of people will say, well, my broker, I've looked at a lot of different arguments about this, guys. My broker will buy it back, spot price, but they're in the same situation as the car dealer. That's just an example. In other words, if the dollar collapses and silver's can't be used, it's not going to be used because people are not going to trade it for something that they can eat or they need medical supplies or whatever it is. They're not going to do that. Now, same article, again, I was mentioning that it kind of goes both ways here. It says, in uncertain financial times, silver is a safe haven investment option against inflation and if the dollar collapses worldwide. When they just said in a paragraph above here that the value will be null and void of silver if the dollar collapses. In real market terms, silver provides a modest return on your investment. Now, in the last couple of years, that's not true. If you had to sell it now and you bought it 2 years ago, guys, you're going to lose about $5 an ounce if you can get that as spot price. Its purchasing power should increase as the dollar collapses. We're not seeing that now. We've seen stock markets go down and things like that, Wall Street go down, the Great Depression, but the dollar was still around. Investors will wait until the last minute to accept an offer for their silver resources. This shrewd move will gain a sizable return on the deal. Now, this lies the crux of the entire video, really. Again, investors will wait until the last minute. Think about it. If you had gold and silver, you want to hold it till it's the most valuable. And what they're saying here is as the dollar slides, the prices go up. It's not happening now. This is different than what we've ever seen before. That's why the Bible says they will cast it into the streets. It's worthless. And they're going to be overcome with grief because they spent every minute trying to make money with silver and gold the easy way on investments instead of work, trading, growing things. It's going to be a disaster. But again, if you don't know when this last minute is, what are you going to do? If you say, well, I'm going to wait for everything to collapse so that silver and gold will be at its top, then you're going against what the markets are doing now as far as if you look into the prices of silver and gold. I'm not talking about stocks. I'm talking about precious metals here. By the way, the most precious metal there will be the symbol AU for investors and survivalists. AU, look it up. But if you don't know that time, then you're going to get caught off guard. In other words, you're saying, well, it's time now. The dollar's collapsed. Let's call the broker and get this bought back. They're going to laugh at you if they even pick up the phone, because they know the whole system is collapsing. What are they going to do with it? They're going to send you money that they need for whatever they're going to do with it. Or they're going to rush out and buy supplies or whatever for their families, cash it out, whatever. No, they're not going to give you a trade, because if the dollar's collapsed anyway, why would you want dollars? What are they going to trade you? So you might want to think about it. Again, it doesn't really matter how much you have. And if it's just a few coins, like we have a couple of old silver dollars that you wouldn't get anything for these days. But if you had sizable amounts, you're going to get caught off guard. So you may want to just look into, well, it's not hedging inflation anymore. We're losing money on it. It's going to be tied to null and void if the cash goes null and void. So you may want to lose a little bit and start thinking about finding out now. Talk to your brokers. Talk to the people that influenced you to go against the Bible and buy this crap. Now, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them in this deal. And you don't know, right? So you may want to look at your options now. Find out how quickly. Call somebody. Ask them, how quickly can I turn this over? Now you could get cash for it. You may lose $5 or so an ounce if you purchase in the last few years. But that's better than nothing. And then take that and buy things your family's going to need to make it, to keep them out of the FEMA lines. In the last chapter in this particular article, it says, how much will silver be worth if the dollar collapses? It kind of goes against the very first chapter. It says the U.S. dollar cannot collapse by itself. The reason being, it is an integral part of the global economy. It was, but thanks to BRICS and other situations of trade between Russia and China, it is no longer in control, and it's about to be cast out of all of Africa. Just like a Newland was a couple of days ago. She was going to go over there and threaten them to let 25,000 troops come in if they don't go along with the West plans, so that the West can continue to manipulate and steal from them. And they wouldn't even let her in to see the head leader, and she was not allowed to see the president that was taken in the coup. We don't really even know where he's at or what his situation is, but she was told no and got out. She said, okay, well, I'm going to let the West African nations that we still have control of send 25,000 troops into Niger. Well, that didn't go well with the surrounding countries, but the big boys in the play are UK, the US, and France, and many European countries. But guys, they have always had control, and they could, if someone wanted to throw those shackles off, then they were threatened with military action. But the surrounding countries now, many of them are saying, no, you're not coming in here. And they're going to allow the U.S. military base to both house, I think, French and U.S. soldiers. So it'd be kind of like a green zone in Iraq. But I don't know how long that will last, because you've got Russia coming in and filling up that vacuum and helping instead of trying to take advantage and keeping these people down. Let's read this. It says, again, the U.S. dollar cannot collapse by itself. The reason is it is an integral part of the global economy. For the dollar to collapse, it would take a significant number of bad transactions to take place simultaneously. Not necessarily it can be an accumulation leading up to a moment. Thus, the world would be in chaos. In many ways, silver will act as a safe haven investment option, when they just said the complete opposite. Now, in the middle of this, they mentioned cryptocurrency, and that may be a good thing, but guys, that's going to be just as bad, if not worse, because you really can't ever hold that, because it can be digitally cut off from one switch. And again, they kind of refute themselves. It says still precious metals will become the leading source of bartering between individuals. A couple of ounces of silver could be the sale price for a new automobile. We went through that. In the end, who knows how much silver will be worth if the dollar collapses? No one can predict the marketplace. I agree with the beginning of their article. If the dollar collapses, what will silver and gold be worth? It will be worth nothing. Now, again, things that you can trade or barter is going to be the only thing, and silver and gold will not be one. You'll be laughed at when, again, someone has food for their family and you're trying to trade them, whether it's a business or individual, whatever. It's just not going to happen. And when the dollar collapses, there's going to be a world, pretty much worldwide, but think of U.S., a run on the grocery stores. Things like that. It's going to be panic. Things are going to empty quicker than an incoming hurricane in Miami. So it may be a time to definitely look at how you can get rid of it. If you think at the last minute, oh, it's collapsing, I can call my broker. Again, you'd be lucky if someone picks up the phone. And the same goes for whoever's convincing you to invest in these markets. You can probably bet they will change their phone numbers or have to move to keep from being tarred and feathered. But guys, we're watching this. Pay attention to it. It may be the time to look at your options to get out of that. Just a heads up. Be safe.